People with anxiety. What is anxiety really like? Not me, but my dog has an uncontrollable pissing problem because of his anxiety. I can't count how many times I've woken up to him pissing on my bed, floor and sometimes even me. I try to be gentle with him because his anxiety has taken over his life, but it's hard when I know what my dog's piss tastes like. My dog has been with me through the hardest times of my life, so I owe it to him to see past his issues and take care of him as best as I can. Though, my boy has only recently started experiencing anxiety, so it's hard to know what to do to make him feel at ease. But I knew there was a real problem when he stopped deep-throating himself. I never knew that everything would change for my boy on one of our daily walks. My dog's a Doberman and he's rarely scared of anything, but once he heard a car backfire loudly, he sprinted and dragged me with him. I even had bruises on my knees from being dragged across the concrete, but it was easy to ignore my pain because that was the first time I saw my boy Rocky terrified. I never knew he could be scared of anything, but from then on he became increasingly scared of loud noises, sudden movements and even new people, and his anxiety only got worse. Whenever we had visitors, Rocky would run to the furthest corner of the house and shake uncontrollably. Not even hearing the sound of his squeaky toy or his bag of food being shaken would distract him from the feeling of hearing his heart pounding in his head. The sound of the doorbell would send him into a frenzy, and even on our daily walks, he would panic at the sight of another dog or a stranger. I would lay down with him on a patch of grass, stroking his fur and speaking to him softly in a pitiful attempt to calm him down. He would sit there with his tail tucked between his legs, ears flat against his head and panting heavily. Every so often he would look at me with those scared eyes, as if begging me to make it stop. I felt so helpless during these moments. His fear only escalated as the days passed, so I tried my best to not trigger him. I rearranged my schedule to avoid the busiest times of the day for walks, and installed blackout curtains so that he wouldn't bark at anything outside. But despite my best efforts, nothing worked, and I even started to miss him peeing on me, because that meant he was alright. It was hard not to feel desperate. Rocky was my best friend, and I couldn't stand to see him so scared all the time. I decided it was time to see a vet, but I must have gone to one of the worst rated clinics on the planet, because as soon as I told the vet that my Doberman had severe anxiety, they laughed in my face. They told me that there was no way a Doberman of all dogs could have anxiety because dogs don't have feelings, even though Rocky was shaking like crazy in his office and I had to keep stroking his head to keep him from barking. He claimed I was making the whole thing up to get substances for my dog, and even suggested I schedule an ear cropping surgery. If you don't know what that is, it's a procedure that removes a dog's ear flap, and Dobermans are commonly known to have undergone this surgery, even though they suffer from permanent damage like trauma and emotional development. The vet said that by getting this surgery, Rocky would look more menacing and could fend off the chihuahuas that were picking on him. I took Rocky out of there as soon as he said that and went home. I did some more research to find out what could help him because nothing I had bought was working. Though at some point when I was on an online pet forum, I came across a post where someone was talking about how their pit bull was always stressed out and needed constant surveillance so that the dog didn't scratch its ears off. They said they got their pit bull to calm down and relieve him of stress by giving them Paw Ranger chews, specifically the ones meant for calming. And afterwards, the dog stopped being anxious and was full of joy. I was desperate for anything that could help Rocky, so I decided to give them a try. The chews couldn't have come soon enough because I was worried just watching Rocky tire himself out from barking. I gave the chew to Rocky and I sat with him while gently petting his head and talking to him softly. I almost freaked out when I realized I forgot to close the curtains and a person walked by. Rocky was aware of the person, but he didn't pace or pant heavily. Instead, he lay down next to me, still a bit anxious, but visibly more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. It was a huge relief. Over the next few weeks, I started giving Rocky the Paw Ranger chews regularly, especially before potentially stressful situations like inviting a friend over or taking him on a walk. He didn't try to hide in the corner of the house or look at me with those panic-stricken eyes. I noticed that he would stay close to me to seek comfort, so that he wasn't suffering alone. 2 months after taking the Paw Ranger chews, the change in him was far more noticeable. He finally started jumping on me again and begging for scratches on his stomach. I missed doing that for fun instead of doing it to calm him down after he had an anxiety attack. Walking with him also became less stressful because I didn't have to worry about him panicking at every little noise, and he even started greeting visitors with a tentative wag of his tail instead of hiding away. I could tell I was getting my boy back when he did that. I was even able to take him to the dog park, which we hadn't been to in so long because I was always terrified of what Rocky would do. I gave him a chew before we left, and even though I felt my own anxiety rising when we entered the park, I wasn't surprised to see that Rocky was walking beside me calmly, and looking at everything with interest instead of fear. We spent the whole day at the park playing catch and running after each other. Rocky's energy and enthusiasm was contagious. He chased after the ball with such joy, with his ears flopping and tongue sticking out. When he brought the ball back, his tail wagged furiously, and he looked up at me with a gleam in his eye that I hadn't seen in months. At one point, we took a break and sat under a tree. Rocky sprawled out on the grass, panting heavily from being tired instead of being stressed. Seeing him so relaxed and happy made my heart swell with joy. He was genuinely enjoying himself instead of being ridden with anxiety and stress just because I got him those Paw Ranger chews. I even almost cried happy tears when Rocky deep-throated himself.